From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Emergency bacon.
At your service with a groovy new Murdertizer, an appetizer of murder, featuring timely updates too big to wait for and too scintillating to ignore. Remember, if you've got a tip for Melissa, call the Tip-Ster hotline at 832-TIP-STER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. She's bursting with so much information, she just changed all of her passwords to 411, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. No, producer Mark, you just showed your geriatric age. Is there a 411 anymore?
Do
you call time and weather too?
Yeah, 555-1212.
To give you the time and weather. Not that we don't all have computers.
I remember I used to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. You're 107.
And
did you have to go through, what's her name, Norma Ray or whatever?
Yeah, Betty Lou or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I just
Connect
remember.
me to Pennsylvania 65000. The fuck? Stop it. No, Grandpa. What the fuck is happening with the 411?
It's kind of scary that I know Pennsylvania 65000.
Yeah.
But no, I remember because now that you bring it up, I remember because I would always know that if I was in a Ma Bell phone, a person with a Ma Bell like AT&T, the original AT&T, the lady would just say, "The time is," and then they would give you the time. But if you were calling from a general telephone, it would say GTE time is. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm going to kill myself. I can't even. You're going to hear it right here on this podcast. It's time for me to lean in on a big sharp knife because
Oh, come on.
I am married to, Methuselah. What the hell with the 411?
Oh,
so we haven't done a Murdertizer in a while, and it's because the full-length episodes tend to take up an inordinate amount of time and research and etc. And there are just some days, some weeks, some months that there's too much going on to include it in an intro in a full-length episode. So this is the Murdertizer for June. I'm going to call it the mid-year
Murdertizer?
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So much going on.
We haven't done one in so long, but yeah, you got a lot of stuff.
So much going on, but it's exciting is one word. Overwhelming is another. But I did feel like it was important to address some of these things. And some of them just would not lend themselves, like I said, to being an intro to a full-length episode. So let's dive in. And, a big piece of news this week was that it was leaked in a way, but mostly known to those involved, that the Golden State Killer is going to make a plea deal on the 29th of June of this year of 2020. It was going to be his next court appearance, which there would have been many, and over the last 2 years, we've seen a handful that are basically like, look, it's going to be years to go through the evidence. We need more time, blah, blah, blah. So this is, it's a good thing for the justice system in that it wouldn't take forever. It's a good thing in that it, he will have to, in some way or another, allocute. He may not have to go into detail. That may be part of the plea agreement, but at some point, he will have to say guilty. He'll have to address, the 13 murders and over 50 rapes, even the ones that. What was so fascinating to me is it was like 80, he would be addressing 82 or 86 charges that we know of, and then another 60 some he would admit to that we did not have proof came back to him.
That's kind of amazing.
150 charges.
And I think, and there's some legal eagles out there that could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he has to say guilty to each and every one.
Yes. No, that is correct. The part that people were getting upset at is that they thought perhaps the victims would not have a chance to do a victim impact statement, and that is not true. They can. from what I understand from Chris Pedretti, who is one of the younger of his victims, she was 15 when she was raped. She knows that you can ask the judge, may I address him? And the judge can say yes or no, and she feels that the judge would not say no in this case. And they can all do their victim impact statements. And they've all been the people that are still alive that are affected, which it's such a huge number of people. They are thinking about their victim impact statements definitely in a more of a hurry now than ever before. And because the number is so large and the Sacramento County courtroom is so small and old, they are considering renting out. And I forgot, producer Mark, do you remember the name of the stadium?
I think it's where the basketball team plays.
Yes, I keep thinking the Staples Center, and that's not it.
I don't remember the name.
I can't either.
Right.
It's like probably sponsored by some large,
Right.
Yeah, and they're thinking of renting that or another large space for all of the people together. And they could. Here's the other piece of information I thought was interesting. We can all watch it live. It will be live streamed. So not only can the victims of the family members and the victims themselves, watch it live while maybe not being directly in the same courtroom. Maybe there'll be a lottery system. I don't know. But we can all watch it live, which I'm looking forward to. So Monday, June 29th, we'll see what happens. It could be a rumor, but I will tell you it seems like it has legs because of the wonderful Jennifer Carroll, who is the most open, positive person. She's the daughter of Lyman Smith and the stepdaughter of Charlene Smith. Both were murdered by Joseph James D'Angelo. And she is, she's such an interesting creature. I know her dad would be really, really proud of her. She's sort of a no holds barred, authentic human being. She reminds me a lot of myself, and I'm not patting myself on the back. She calls herself Jennifer who talks too much, and it's because she's very open and honest. And one of the things I wish I had more of that she has is her insane positivity. For everything she's been through, and we've all got our shit, right? We've all got tough times in our lives. I mean, Jennifer has a daughter who's college aged, and she's very, present in her daughter's life. She's, I think, divorced, and she lost her father and stepmother at a young age in a very bad way, and was, for a short period of time, a suspect. She and her brother, who I believe found them when he came to the house to mow the grass, they were both on the suspect list. So here you've lost, your father, who you were very close to, and you were on the suspect list even for a short period of time as a young girl. But still, that would have to be just overwhelmingly terrifying. And she just hasn't really given up. I think she's a wonderful spokesperson for the family. I just do. She's just authentic and real, but she's so positive. Everything has this, it's not Pollyanna. She's extremely smart. She's not, like I'm just living in a world of naive bliss, but she just wants to keep a positive attitude. You can tell but she's honest about the shit that's not good, that, brings her down. But she just sees things in a way. I love her outlook is what I'm going to say. And she has a podcast called The Lawyer's Daughter, and it's about the Joseph James D'Angelo case. And she has interesting guests on, and she's just, like I said, she's just like, as much as one can be who is the surviving child of a murder victim, she is an open book. And I just really like that about her. We've had several conversations via social media. I've asked her if I could talk about something, and she has said, go with God. She has never denied. And I try to be respectful of, especially of the living family members of this remarkably terrible case. And she just never tells me I can't. I don't want you to. In fact, one of my favorite answers to a question I posed to her was, just be you and tell the truth, and you can't go wrong. And that's not just a sentence for me.
That's great advice. Generally,
it's great life advice. That is why just one of the reasons why I really like Jennifer Carroll. So I'd actually had a list of kind of sexy murder nerd podcasts I was going to recommend, but I'm going to save that for another episode because we have a couple of episodes coming up. We'll have an interview with a cold case detective about an 11-year-old case in northern Kentucky, where I'm from, that I mistakenly thought had been solved. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. We have, a couple of really interesting cases coming up. We're going to have an interview with a retired NYPD officer and his time in the Grand Theft Auto division. I know it's not exactly looking for tips in a typical case we cover, but he's such again, he's an open book and an interesting dude and an interesting career. So we're going to be having an interview with him. And we have an upcoming episode about a serial killer that was more interesting than I originally thought. I had heard of the case, thought I knew a lot about the case, but found out more recently and have an even bigger list of gratitude for a very, very small town police officer who fucking put it together and stopped someone who would not have stopped on his own. But
well, now that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, we do have a couple of really good episodes in the can that I'm looking forward to. Well, not exactly in the can yet.
Gotta get them in that
halfway
can,
to the can.
Yeah. They're
mid-air.
They're in your head.
No, they're mid-air.
We got to get them out of your head and into the can.
So, back to the Golden State Killer plea deal. It's a lot going on about this case. Not only, Jennifer Carroll's openness, and she's very accessible on social media. And I'm going to talk about social media being a really positive and in some cases a really negative later on in this Murdertizer. So Joseph James D'Angelo's wife, Sharon Huddle, her brother, James Huddle, has a new book that is supposed to come out at the end of June, but the release date has not been given yet. And it's called Killers Keep Secrets. Now, here's another reason why I love Jennifer Carroll. She's like, look, James Huddle's putting out a book. I don't know anything about it. I haven't read it, but interesting. She no judgment whatsoever. I think she feels, how could his family not have known? How could someone not have known? And if you remember, Joseph James D'Angelo actually said to James Huddle, hey, do you think they're ever going to catch that Golden State Killer guy?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they had a conversation about it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I feel like James Huddle's title, Killers Keep Secrets, is a really good one. And it wraps around, and not protecting him and the rest of the family, but he was his sister's husband in his mind. He trusted, his own kids with Joseph James D'Angelo. He's known him for 48 years. So, it's sometimes you don't know who your family is. I mean, that I don't want to sound creepy and scare everyone.
My God.
But I think Jennifer Carroll feels like, how could you not have had, signs? And I think there may have been signs, but I think there's also that part of most of our brains that want to file something away in the good column. So, Joe D'Angelo is a weirdo, acts strange, hair trigger temper, etc. Doesn't necessarily compute to he's killed 13 people and raped over 50 and done a lot of bad things. I think most of our brains are in a way where we want to see people in the best light, even the people that don't show themselves in the best light. I think it takes a different critical mind to see something like that, and maybe outside someone more objective than a family member. And it's not like James Huddle, was Joe D'Angelo's best friend, but he's his brother-in-law, How many of us are going to sit, it doesn't matter how distanced you are geographically or any other way. How many of us are going to sit and be like, I bet that guy fucking rapes, kills, murders people. I bet I don't think it dawns on us. And so I'm going to be interested to see what the book says. And like I said, I was just so blown away by Jennifer's open-minded attitude about welcoming anyone who, well, I sort of say anyone who writes a book, but that's not true, because there have been some books written that Jennifer is not happy with, and
nor should she be.
Yeah, and I'm with her. A couple of people that are very shady suspect, kind of, jumping on the train kind of thing. People who also, their stories can't at all be corroborated, which doesn't mean that they aren't true, because I bet there's a lot of people who did not come forward, whether they were, someone was peeping on them or whether they were actually physically assaulted. But a couple of people have written books that are so on the periphery and so not of import and not helpful and potentially filled with inaccuracies that I understand why Jennifer, and other victims, family members of victims are not, all on board with everybody putting out their book. It's like, hey, I live in Southern California. I'm going to write a book about me living in Southern California and knowing that there's a serial killer after I read Michelle McNamara's amazing article in LA Magazine, Los Angeles Magazine. Like, it would be, like me writing a book. It would be, which is not going to happen. But I do have to say, Michelle McNamara's book has been turned into a 6-part docuseries on HBO. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And guess when it comes out?
June 29th.
June 28th.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Even Jennifer, who is so positive, she's like, do you think that was, on purpose? Yeah, pretty much, I'm going to guess. So, it's going to be, I'm praying to God, interesting, but even more than that, I hope it's respectful. There are several family members who feel that Michelle's book was disrespectful, especially to Janelle Cruz and her family. I just don't see it that way, but Janelle's not a family member of mine. If there were inaccuracies, I am, heartbroken about that, but I don't for 1 minute think Michelle McNamara set out to be salacious. I don't think she set out to write a book about victims and, put them in an unflattering light.
No, of course not. I mean, you can just tell.
Absolutely. It was a passion, an obsession. It's more than a passion. It's an obsession of hers.
It's an obsession, just like it's your obsession to do what you're doing on this podcast. I mean that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I hope people don't feel that what I'm doing is disrespectful. I never wanted to be disrespectful at all. I am fascinated. I do want to know. I don't like puzzles and the fact that I want everything to be solved and I want all the answers, but I also enjoy digging into the puzzle part. So, and I think that's what Michelle McNamara just, she had a true crime blog that was, great and talked about other cases, and it evolved into, a really big passion that became this book that I think is really well done. I don't care what you think. Don't write me. Don't call me. Don't message me with your opinions about her being a fucking bitch. Tough shit. If you don't like it, that's fine. Go read, Helter Skelter again. I'm a big fan of, Vincent Bugliosi's writing. Go read an Anne Rule book. That's phenomenal. Enjoy yourself. I still think this is a really good book. So the fact that they've turned it into a 6-part series is kind of fascinating. And a point that Jennifer Carroll brought up that I thought is really, I feel like describes who she is. And it may not be that important, but it was something noteworthy. The director is Liz Garbus. And she, she's won an Academy Award for her documentary about Nina Simone called What Happened, Ms. Simone. I think it was 2016. She's won, she was nominated for the Academy Award. She didn't win, but she's won Emmys for documentary series. And the fact that she's a woman really meant something to Jennifer, because she felt that a series handling stories of a man who rapes and murders mostly women, men are sort of collateral damage and something he used to make himself feel more powerful. It should be directed by a woman. And it felt like a gut punch. I was just like, when she said it, I was like, oh my gosh, she's right. And you don't have to agree. I feel like the best director should direct any story. But something like this, I feel, can be handled well by a woman.
Absolutely, and it's based on a book by a woman,
right?
Whose passion for the case, I think, was based on the fact that she was a woman, and she put her. Look, it's one thing for me when a guy hears these stories, we have a different reaction to it than a woman who has. It's just natural because of the nature of the crime and the way he did it. My instinct, and I think most men's instinct, would be, to really hate the guy and want to just punish him, and because of the protective nature that men feel toward women. I think a woman has a much more raw and personal, has to have a much more raw and personal feel for this because of the invasive nature of the crimes, the personal, spiritual side of it. Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons that women are far more interested in true crime books and podcasts.
Yeah, me too.
It's because the nature of the crime, especially when it's combined with rape, it's the ultimate not just physical but spiritual invasion. And I think
betrayal.
Betrayal. And it's obvious to me that this story, as told by Michelle McNamara, was about a woman's experience thinking about these crimes.
I think you're right.
And I think it needs to be. I think it's good that a woman is directing the documentary.
And I do too. And I appreciate what you're saying, Producer Mark, especially coming from the male perspective. And it becomes much more visceral for females than I think we even can express sometimes. And I had not thought about who was handed Michelle's book to turn it into a docuseries. Who was given that, and how would that be handled? It didn't dawn on me that it probably is much better served being directed by a female who is, sounds like kind of a kick-ass female, quite frankly, considering the project she's done. And something else I really love, and which may sound very surface, but it's footage that hasn't been seen. It's probably stills. It may be done a lot like the Kid Stays in the Game kind of documentary. But the voiceover is done by Amy Ryan.
Oh, my.
And I think she's perfection. She's got the perfect voice. If you remember her from every amazing role she's ever done. But I can hear her voice more clearly in The Office when she was Michael's girlfriend. And, that was a sitcom, but she and he together, and Steve Carell, had such a depth in their weird little relationship because they were both kind of crazy. And there were moments in The Office where they, connected, and then, Amy's character Holly didn't want to be involved with Michael Scott anymore. And I mean, it was remarkably done for a sitcom. I'm just going to say that. But Amy's voice.
It's her voice. Her voice would be perfect for this.
It is perfect. That's one of the things I'm most looking forward to. The fact that it is directed by a woman who I think has some really good chops and voiced by Amy Ryan. I mean, I can't think of anything any better for this. I mean, at first when you hear, it's like, oh, okay, so it's not a recreation. Thank God they didn't get I don't know, Michelle Pfeiffer to play, Michelle McNamara or something like that. It's obviously just, it's a documentary. It's not a reenactment. But the fact that Amy Ryan's voice is narrating it, I feel like makes it all the better. I'm looking even more forward to it now than I was.
Absolutely.
So another large piece of information is that I think it's up to 5 now. Black men have been found hanging from trees. 2 of them in the Los Angeles County area. One of them about 30 miles from us, and the other probably 100 or so, 120 miles from us in Victorville. So the one, and I know Victorville's not in Los Angeles County. I think it's San Bernardino. But the young man who was found hanged about 30 miles from us, Robert Fuller, he has, they're still looking into his, him being found hanging, but the young man who was found in Victorville, which is, 120 or so miles from us, his death has come back as a suicide, and his family released the information, which I thought was a beautiful thing. Apparently he was from Ohio, and he was out here in California, Southern California, and he was homeless, and he was found hanging from, a tree in a looked like not a very active area. And if it was, if he was homeless and near a homeless encampment, and it's hot out there in the desert, it's very hot. It doesn't even depend on a matter of the year. I guess it's cold in the winter. But he, had a girlfriend, lived in this homeless encampment, and his girlfriend, his name is Malcolm Harsh, and his girlfriend called 911 and said, May 31st, and said, my boyfriend hung himself. And the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, went out and cut him down, performed CPR. There were fire personnel that were there early. They had cameras on, and they, showed them working 20 minutes on him, and there was no sign of life. And I have to say something San Bernardino County did that LA County needs to fucking pay attention to. They had cameras on their bodies when they were attempting to revive him, but more importantly, they fucking did the footwork and found a camera in an abandoned building that had shot what happened. And
that's kind of amazing.
It's amazing. It's the footwork that gets the shit done. The police departments that fucking, kick out the jams and do their work, and found that this, video showed him hanging himself, and his wallet, his phone, all of his information was found in his pockets. His family asked that they see the videotape, and the sheriff's department showed them that, yes, he hung himself. And even there's a spokesperson I'm not a big fan of, Najee Ali, but he said on behalf of the family of Malcolm Harsh, unfortunately, he did take his own life. And the Victorville Police Department released the video, and they released the evidence to the family. And the family wants to thank everyone for their support and prayers. And they're shipping his body back to Ohio for his burial. So that, 1 out of 5, I guess there are 5 now, is, at least solved, and that it was actually a suicide. And Robert Fuller, this is, 10 days after Malcolm Harsh, Robert Fuller is found hanged in Palmdale, which is about 30 miles north of us. And it's still LA County, and it's the Antelope Valley. And immediately it was called a suicide. And Steve Hoffbauer, the mayor of Palmdale, is at a press conference, and people are just screaming him down and saying, we demand answers. Where's the video? Now, this is something that bothers me, but it is a hopeful part of social media. Billy Jensen, again, connected back to Michelle McNamara's book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. He and Paul Haynes helped finish the book at Patton Oswalt, Michelle McNamara's husband's request. And there are people who actually have read the book and felt that you could tell when the writing switched from a female to a male perspective. I'm not
surprising.
I'm not sure I agree. I tried to read it knowing, what I was looking at, and I might be able to find specific pieces just because of personal voice, but I think that Billy Jensen and Paul Haynes did a good job of finishing her book and did her proud. But the most important parts I can't help but think are her, including the last section, A Letter to an Old Man, which was so prophetic. It was exactly how she said. One day when you're an old man and you think you got away with it, there's going to be a knock at your door, motherfucker. And what happened? There was a knock at his door. It just was, I feel like the body of the book can be shown to be Michelle. So Billy Jensen, God bless him, I'm hoping for the right reasons, got in his car and drove to Palmdale and took pictures of cameras around where Robert Fuller had been found hanged, which was a much more public area than where Malcolm Harsh was found hanged. It makes sense that there would be more cameras, and the LA County Sheriff's Department said, nope, we don't have any. There weren't any cameras.
Really?
Yep. And then a few days later, well, we're looking for them. I think it was 5 days, actually.
Okay, that's what?
I know. I'm grateful for people like Billy Jensen who, on social media posted 3 different pictures of 3 different cameras that, angles that could have potentially caught what happened. And now here's the part where social media is a double-edged sword. We, a month or so ago, received a couple of warnings from friends saying, hey, there's going to be rioters and protesters coming to your area. And my favorite part was, hey, everybody, someone named Callie Killer Dog. Hey, everybody, 10 o'clock, we're meeting at Magic Mountain. A bunch of rich white people with big houses. Let's rob them all. And I thought, well, first of all, I couldn't find any person under that name.
Yeah, yeah.
But wait, it's like, hey, kids, we're going to put on a show in the barn. Let's meet at Magic Mountain. Let's meet at the amusement park. And then, first of all, Callie Killer Dog, they ain't nobody rich up here. We're all just a bunch of fucking people of all different colors living our middle class lives. And I mean, I'm like, dude, you're picking the wrong, wrong church and wrong pew.
It was obvious. I mean, the thing is,
it was ridiculous.
It was obviously a troll, and it was somebody that was just trying to whip stuff
upset.
up.
It was probably some rich person's kid.
Absolutely,
like
it was
15-year-old kid,
some rich white kid who probably just thought it was funny,
right?
And it whipped,
and everybody shit their pants.
Yeah, exactly.
So similarly. It was reported there was going to be a KKK rally in Palmdale. And what was so fascinating is that more people, I don't know if anyone from the KKK showed up, and the Sheriff's Department took that very seriously, that there would be a KKK rally. But what did show up were a lot of people protesting right at the area where there was supposed to be the KKK rally, saying, please release the footage of Robert Fuller's hanging. There were more people protesting in support of Robert Fuller, no matter whether he committed suicide or this was a terrible act of racism or just a terrible act of murder. There were I didn't see any people in white hoods or in black riot gear.
Yeah,
I saw a bunch of people supporting Robert Fuller,
which is very encouraging.
So I'm hoping. I mean, the LA County Coroner's Office is still saying, look, it's a suicide, but we're looking closer, deeper. We want all of the details available. We're working with local community leaders to increase, the dialogue and how we can work together to be safer, more inclusive. They're still, conducting, the autopsy. They're still working, on how to get this completely solved if there isn't something as definitive as video, which it sounds like there may be. All we can do is hope that if there is video of Robert Fuller's suicide or murder, that it comes forward, because
yeah, this stuff just, when it just sits out there like that, it's no good for anybody. It's certainly not good for society. And when I hear that it's the Sheriff's Department, or is it the local
Sheriff's Department?
It's the LA County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
When they say no, we don't have anything else, and then when there's clearly cameras around, what is that about?
I don't know.
I don't. That's
so. Here's something else that just all bad timing. Just such bad timing. So a few days after Robert Fuller is found hanged. His brother, Teron Jamal Boone, was killed by LA County Sheriff's deputies in Kern County in Rosamond, where he lived. And they went to initiate a warrant on charges of multiple charges, criminal threats, assault, false imprisonment, domestic violence. You know, he has a child with a woman. She was shot during the exchange. He was pulled over. A traffic stop was initiated. He was pulled over. He got out of his SUV and started firing, and they fired on him. The 7-year-old child was unharmed. Unfortunately, the woman, passenger, was shot in the chest, but she's still alive. She's in the hospital. And Teron Boone was shot and killed. And it was, 3:40 in the afternoon. And it's like right after Robert Fuller is found hanged, his half-brother is shot by the police. In another county for other reasons. I mean, it just...
Yeah. It's we are living in some terrible times right now, and
sometimes you just want to go to sleep and not wake up till things are better.
It just seems like the universe is like testing us or something.
Sometimes it does feel like it's, I try to remember my yoga training. The only thing we have control over is our reactions. So I try to remember that in a time where my reactions are all over the place. And I try to remember, keep calm. Freaking out doesn't really help anything. It also doesn't mean it shouldn't happen, because how are you going to release, all of this from our bodies, from our souls, especially if you're someone like me who holds it all in somatically and then, wonder why everything hurts because you're holding it in. So sometimes you want to go to sleep and just wake up when things are better. And I guess that's just not going to happen. So we wake up every day and try and do the best we can. So the last section I want to discuss in this Murdertizer is that I've gotten so many requests to cover the missing soldiers from Fort Hood, especially Vanessa Guillen, but also Gregory Morales, who went missing in August of 2019 from Fort Hood. So at present, there are or were 2 missing people that are dominating the headlines. Now, Gregory Morales also had the last name of Waddell, which is, I think, his mother's name. Apparently, his wife's surname is Morales, and she insisted that he legally change his name to that. I've heard a couple of reasons why, but apparently that's how he is known, as Gregory Morales, even though his birth name is Gregory Waddell. So around August 19th, he was off base around Killeen, Texas. He was not in Fort Hood, but he was in Killeen, and he had just purchased a Kia SUV and was looking for some gas money for his new car. I guess they didn't, it still had paper tags. I guess they didn't, have a full tank when he bought the car. He was about to be discharged. He was about to be out of the military and figuring out what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. And then he's missing. Now, the SUV was found not long after that, but he was not until this morning. So here we are, not quite a year from when he went missing. His remains have been found in a field not far. It's obviously skeletal remains at this point, but not far from where his SUV was found. Gregory's mother, Kim Waddell, said that there was a reward offered by the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command of $25,000 for any information about missing soldier Gregory Morales. And what his mother said was, well, that would tell me that they also suspect something happened to him beyond him just going AWOL. So I don't know all of the layers or levels of the military, what happens, but apparently at first you're considered AWOL. And then after a certain amount of time, I believe it was a month in Private Morales's case, you're then considered a deserter. So you're listed as a deserter until you come back, or it's proven that your remains have been found and you cannot come back of your own volition. So that's what happened, Friday, several, miles from Fort Hood, in a field in Killeen. Skeletal remains are found. And, it's been positively identified as Gregory Morales. We don't know what happened. We don't know the cause of death. It's still being investigated. It's all, odd. Why would he be separated from his car? There's a little bit more of a theory that he was, maybe want to end his own life than there is Vanessa Guillen, who's missing in a whole different way. We'll get to her. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Gregory's family believes that he was about to start a new life out of the military. Why would he take his own life? Absolutely understood. I have no idea. Maybe something terrible happened to him. Maybe he was robbed and murdered. I don't know. His body's found in a field away from his car. That's an odd thing, but it could go in different ways. It could be of his own hand or not. So we'll have to find out. But this last section that I'm going to discuss brings back Lavina Johnson's case to me like a big slap in the face. And it bothers me in a way I can't even tell you because of the similarities. Lavina Johnson was found in Balad and just mutilated in so many ways. Her poor little body, what she went through. Now, Vanessa Guillen, 20, Lavina was 19. Her items are found tiny like Lavina Johnson. She's 5'2" and weighs 126 pounds. Tiny, beautiful young girls. So Vanessa's been missing since April, and it's become a huge thing. In fact, so huge that, again, social media did something very bad this week that I will address. But, Private First Class Vanessa Guillen, who's 20, has been missing since April 22nd from Fort Hood. And again, the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command is in charge, which they're the ones that are in charge of Gregory Morales' case. So she was last seen wearing a black t-shirt and purple, exercise fitness pants in the parking lot of her Regimental Engineer Squadron headquarters, sometime between 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. on April 22nd. So her keys, her barracks room key, her ID, her wallet were all found in the armory room where she had been working, repairing small arms and artillery. That was found, and she has not been found. And just a short time before she went missing, she reported to her family that she had been the victim of sexual harassment. And I don't know that she used the word sexual assault, but I know she said she didn't want to report it. She didn't want it investigated. She just wanted the details to go away. But one of the allegations is that an officer walked in while she was taking a shower.
Oh, boy.
And another one was that she had been screamed at by an officer in Spanish. And, sexually explicit things screamed at her in Spanish.
Wow.
So then she disappears. Now, I find it odd that Fort Hood, which was an extraordinarily large base and should be extremely protected, I find it odd that a beautiful, tiny little private goes missing and cannot be found, especially when all of her items are found. They have apparently spoken to 150 people. There are 150 interviews. There have been 500 people that have, from the base, 500 people, 500 soldiers have searched for her. They've had 2,000 people volunteer for foot searches. It's gotten a lot of attention from, even celebrities. Salma Hayek, who, keeps posting about Private Guillen and on her Instagram. Baby Bash, the rapper, has donated $5,000 to the fund as far as, information. And it's now up to, I think, 55,000. So it's, the League of United American Citizens contributed 25,000 to a reward, and the Army Criminal Investigation Command has offered $25,000 for a reward for credible information leading to the whereabouts of, Private Guillen. So like $55,000, has been gathered, as for a reward for finding her. Now, here's what happened this week that bothered me greatly. On Thursday, someone who no longer lives on Fort Hood, but apparently did, posted that Vanessa's remains had been found. And that's not true.
Oh, for God's sake.
Now, the Army Command is investigating and speaking to that individual. The post has been taken down, but not before it obviously went wildfire around the internet. And they're talking to that person. I don't know where they got their information or what they were doing. And maybe they'll come out and say, this is what happened. It was an accident or something. But that's the kind of thing that makes social media, it makes me not like it. It's like...
Yeah.
So all of Vanessa's objects were found on the base, but her cell phone still has not been recovered. So maybe that went with her. Maybe that is still on her. There is an attorney for the Guillen family, Natalie Qualms, and she said that she knows of at least 2 incidents of sexual harassment, which I explained, the superior walking in while she's showering and another superior, making vulgar comments to her in Spanish. And she says, the facts aren't good. I don't like them. There's a few incidents where she told her colleagues and her friends and her family about what happened, but she didn't want to report it. And here's the question that she asks that is going to just stick with me. How does someone disappear on a base that has more protections and safeguards than any place else on the planet?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the big ones. So I wanted to say that I just don't think it's time to cover these cases now. I appreciate those of you who want me to cover it, but because things are unfolding so quickly in so many of these cases, especially Vanessa's, I'm not going to cover that case now. There are probably podcasts that can cover it and do an amazing job. And when the details come out, I would be happy to take another look at it. But what I do appreciate is the fact that you beautiful tipsters trust me enough to ask me to cover the case. And it's an honor that you do. But I want to make sure before I cover the case that as much of the truth that is out there can be gathered. And I don't think it's the right time, and I also don't think I'm the right person to cover these cases, but you can be sure I'm going to keep my eye on them, and if and when it's the right time, I promise you, I will cover them. And I thank you, and more cowbell.
If you'd like to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/Just the Tipsters.